show. Now, for today's show, I'm super excited. I've got a really great show lined up for you guys today. I'm really going to talk about a couple different things because, I have a couple subjects that I keep hearing about over and over and over again in the office. So I'm going to talk a little bit about eczema today. Eczema is one that I get asked about all the time. I work with a lot of parents and kids, and I work with, especially like little ones. Man, I'm seeing it more and more in little ones, across the board that have eczema issues. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit today. So if you're listening on Facebook Live and you have a child that has some eczema problems, if you have, friends that have an eczema problem, if you have friends that have kids that have an eczema problem, make sure that you share this one because this is going to be a really, really good one. Again, talking all about eczema and skin issues. Here's the deal with eczema and skin issues. It is becoming more abundant. I am literally seeing it in kids who are, born at home, having home births, kids who have been nothing but breastfed, kids that have, they haven't had, any shots or medications. These are like super healthy kids. And yet they have eczema running rampant on their body. I'm seeing it more and more across the board. I'm seeing it, in kids that are, usually labeled as sick, and they've been on medications and they've been on antibiotics and they've been on all of these different things. I'm seeing it in them as well. And then in adults, I see that eczema shows up. And it's usually just like, slap some lotion on it or some steroids, and then I forget that it even exists, and I don't even want to think about it. And then my patients show me, their elbows or their knees, like behind the knees, and it's like, holy moly, like massive amounts of inflammation. So, skin issues and eczema is a big issue. It's a big issue because there's underlying problems to it. There's an underlying root cause to it. It's not just a skin issue. If you treat it as a skin issue, then unfortunately, you're never going to really get down to the root cause. Very rarely is eczema an actual skin problem. Now, again, there is occasion where that can happen, but for the most part, it is an underlying issue. And so that's what we're going to dive in today. So if you're listening on Facebook Live, if you have questions as I go through, this information, please, ask them at any point. And like I said, if you or a loved one has it or a friend that make sure that you share this video so that we can get this information out there because it is absolutely huge. On the radio, again, if you guys have any questions, you can always call in to the station. That number is 267-1023. Again, that's 267-1023, and we can really dive into it. So, about 31 million Americans are dealing with eczema. That's an estimate. And when you're looking at 31 million Americans, you're thinking about, almost 10% of our population in the United States is dealing with eczema. That should kind of stop you and show a red flag, which is kind of interesting because when you look at eczema, when I'm working with it in the office, I work with it from the perspective of an autoimmune condition. All right. Basically, you have your immune system that is attacking the skin. Now there are some people that won't quite characterize it that way. And when you're looking at this itchy and inflamed skin, it's almost like a rash-like appearance. Again, there's some doctors that won't characterize it that way. I do. I characterize it as an autoimmune condition, and I work on it from that standpoint, and I get phenomenal results with it when I work on it from that standpoint. And so most of the time when you see eczema, it usually develops in childhood. It can develop in adolescence as well. But it usually don't see it like just start in adulthood. Now that doesn't mean it can't happen. But most of the time it starts, when you're a kid. And usually when you see it, there's like 7 different types of eczema. And I'm not really going to go through them all, but some of them are like contact dermatitis, which is going to be, more of the like, maybe you touch something that you shouldn't have, like maybe you're using like a blanket that's made out of weird material or something. Then you've got atopic dermatitis, you've got stasis dermatitis, you've got, again, so there's different types of subcategories of eczema. Honestly, for me, it doesn't matter because we're going to try to get rid of the root cause in all categories. And so you've got to find, a few different things. You've got to find out what is actually triggering it. Is it the immune system? Is it something in your environment? Is it toxins, and again, from the inside out? Is it an imbalanced immune system that's stuck in the humoral or the Th2 part of the immune system? You have to figure that. Is it a gut issue, right? Is it a major gut issue? And again, you've got to get down to the root cause. So some symptoms of eczema, for those of you that may be wondering, well, I have a rash, but I don't know if it's eczema or not. Itching, dry skin, sensitive skin, things like red or discolored skin, inflammation. Really, that's a big one, is noticing that it kind of raises up a little bit, especially with certain flare-ups, swelling, things like oozing, sometimes, even cracking and bleeding. One of the most severe eczema cases that I've worked on and am still working on is with like a little infant that I'm talking like bleeding and just really just almost heartbreaking to see this child, and yet the parents were doing so many amazing things to try to get this to get it under balance and to get it the symptoms down. And again, they've made some major strides in his case, but that was one of the things, like cracking, the bleeding, and it was just really awful overall. So when we're looking at certain factors that may lead to eczema, right, let's kind of break some of them down. Chemical irritants. This is one that I kind of take my patients through, really kind of cleaning out their house, cleaning out the things that they may be using, putting on their skin. So those are going to be things like soaps and lotions, for some adults or teenagers, deodorants that you're using. Like, we've got to start clearing those things out. We've got to start clearing out, some of the harsh chemicals that they're cleaning with. So I'll kind of take a step through their home life, take a step through what they're using as their beauty products, what are they putting on their skin, if it's a baby, are they still using things like certain baby lotions, and we'll switch those out, right? So we'll start to switch those out because that's called removing a cause, right? We've got to remove those out of there. If we don't get rid of those, then again, you won't get down to the issue. You kind of have to mark that one off the list. So I go over that with every single patient. that I work with that come in. Now, some of the other things that you have to look at is environmental allergens. Living in Chattanooga, this is something that like literally everybody here in this city deals with, is sinus and allergies. Maybe unless you're getting adjusted in my clinic and working on histamine reactions and things like that. But this can be a trigger with eczema. So you can see things like dust mites and certain pets and pet dander and pollen and weeds and those type of things. Now, for me, I still look at that as, again, there's root cause why you would actually react to those things, and not just that like, oh, sorry, your child's allergic for pets, allergic to pets for the rest of their life. Like, I still think there's underlying issues to that. I don't think that anybody is just, born allergic to grass. Like, that makes zero sense unless there was like an environmental toxicity issue when the baby was in utero, and maybe like an actual DNA change when the baby was in utero. Some other things can be actually like temperature swings can actually be a contributing factor, or let's say a trigger is a better word to say than a underlying cause. But a trigger can be that. Mental and emotional stress can be a trigger that kind of flares up eczema. Food sensitivities is another one that can be a trigger that flares up eczema. And I use food sensitivities as a trigger and not as a root cause, because again, food sensitivities are never let me repeat, never a root cause. Now, you may be saying like, well, Dr. Nathan, what about gluten? And what about, certain like conventional dairy or conventional meat or, genetically modified vegetables? Well, to me, that's not a food. That's a chemical. That has nothing to do with food. Like, nobody should be consuming genetically modified vegetables. That's not food at all. That's chemicals. I think conventionally raised meat is not fit for human consumption. I think that conventionally raised dairy is not fit for human consumption. So again, like, that's not food at all. So food sensitivities are a trigger, not a root cause. Hormone changes can be a trigger. So if you're going through, like, for example, like, you see a child starting to go through, things like breaking into puberty. You see women in kind of pre and post menopausal stages. Women, pre or post pregnancy or during pregnancy, that can be a flare up as well. And seeing that as well. Microbial overgrowth on the skin, so imbalance there as well. So I got to take my first break of the show, guys. If you have any questions as you're on Facebook Live, again, make sure that you ask them. I'll dive a little bit deeper during the break. Into some issues with the eczema, and if you have a specific case that you're dealing with that you have some questions about, make sure that you ask your questions on there. And again, if you're listening on the radio show and you want our help in our clinic, you can give the girls a call. They're standing by just as they do every radio show. That number is 423-362-5360. Again, that's 423-362-5360, and they can set you up with an appointment to sit down with myself in our office and actually start getting down to the root cause of your health issue. This is Wellness Radio with Dr. Nathan Warren. I'll be right back after the break. All right, guys, welcome on Facebook Live. I hope you guys are doing fantastic today. Seeing you guys on here is fantastic. If you hear my kids in the background, they're playing outside and playing some games. So every now and then you can hear them yelling in the background, but that's okay. That's life. All right. So eczema. Again, I wanted to do this topic. I've never actually done this topic on our radio show before. Mainly just because I felt like it was such an in-depth topic that maybe there weren't a lot of people that listen on the radio show would really care about. But then, over the last several months, I've just been seeing patient after patient after patient. Like, almost, I would say about 7 out of 10 patients have eczema listed as at least this symptom that they're dealing with on their paperwork. And again, I would actually say at least 50% of the kids that I work with in the office and the parents that I coach from a health perspective have kids that are dealing with eczema on a regular basis. So I wanted to go ahead and do that on this Facebook Live today and kind of dive into it. So far, we went over some of the main triggers. And again, triggers are not root cause, okay? Triggers are something that can kind of lead to, a flare-up with eczema. Root cause means they're actually the cause of the eczema. So first, I'm going over triggers. So just as a repeat, if you're just now joining us, because I see several of you just now joined us, some triggers can be chemical irritants, so the soaps you use, the lotions you use, the chemicals that you're cleaning your house with. So you've got to take your way through that. And by the way, if you ever want to go through that in depth, I actually have a detox course on our website that you can go to. If you go to doctorswarren.com, that's DRSWARREN.com, doctorswarren.com. I actually have a detox course where I actually take you through specifically many different videos on how to basically clean up your environment, and then I dive into how to actually start detoxing the body as well. So again, that's on there if you are dealing with eczema or you're dealing with a health issue and you want to go ahead and start learning how to remove toxins from your environment and how to kind of take that step by step. If you go to the courses page or the courses tab on our website, doctorswarren.com, I have the detox one there. Okay. So again, that's a big one to really dive into to remove the root cause there. All right, guys, welcome back to Wellness Radio. I am your health expert, Dr. Nathan Warren, and I'm talking all about eczema. So if you're just now joining us on the radio show or on Facebook Live, welcome. I'm super excited to have you here. Again, make sure you ask your questions if you have specific ones about yourself or a loved one. I'd love to be able to answer those and dive into those, whether on Facebook Live or again on the radio show live. So make sure you ask your questions there. Now, kind of diving back into it, recap of the triggers: chemical irritants, environmental allergens, things like, very hot and cold temperature, going back and forth with that. Mental and emotional stress is a big one. So really having, maybe you lost a loved one, maybe going through the last year of this, of this pandemic. Food sensitivities can be a trigger as well. Hormone changes can be a big one. So seeing hormonal changes, in teenagers and kids, and also in pre-pregnancy, post-pregnancy. And actually, what's interesting? I find that a lot of eczema issues, and this isn't in every case, but a lot of them actually go away during pregnancy, and then they can return with a vengeance post-pregnancy. Or I can have a patient that has, major eczema flare-ups pre-pregnancy, nothing during pregnancy, and then seeing it stay away post-pregnancy. You may ask, why is that? I think the primary reason for that is because when a woman is pregnant, they're actually changing the dominant part of their immune system. So they're actually changing, TH1 and TH2 part of the immune system. And so they actually calm down a lot of autoimmune conditions during pregnancy. But anyway, that was kind of a sidebar there. Now, as we're diving into some of the main causes, I want to make sure that you guys realize that unless you are actually fixing these root causes, your eczema will only be, quote unquote, managed. Okay, so you have to be able to actually fix these root causes in order to see major improvements here. So one root cause, I want to start off with what I think is absolutely important, for everybody, regardless of whether they are, plant-based and vegan or carnivore. You've got to heal the cell membrane. All right. I find that every single, and we do a little test in the office called a meta-oxy test, where I can actually see oxidative stress. We can actually get a reading of, how much oxidative stress my patients are under. And what I find is that my patients with eczema, they are, again, off the chart. They are very, very high in oxidative stress, and it's usually a good test to tell, again, how damaged their cell membranes are. Then if I do let's say an oats test, or I do a fatty acid profile, again, they have major imbalance in their omega-6 omega-3 ratio. They have major imbalance in their fatty acids, and again, their cell membranes are damaged overall. They're inflamed. So to me, that is a root cause. Cell membrane damage is a root cause. And so again, if you are not, from a dietary standpoint, really changing the way that your cell membranes function, and how do you do that? You guys have heard me talk about this probably, probably way too many times, but hopefully I've burned it into your head. You've got to switch out, again, the bad fat for the good fat. Guys, if you are still, if you have a kid with eczema and you are, even on occasion, let me make this clear, and this is not to parent shame by any means. This is to educate, right, and make you aware. If you have a child that is having skin issues, and even on occasion they are having any type of bad oil, so that means if they are eating any type of fried food out, at a restaurant, if they're consuming those, guys, they're not going to get well. It's not going to happen. Because again, there's already inflamed cell membranes. So you do have to be very, very serious about dietary changes when it comes to eczema and skin issues, you have to be very, very serious about that. I usually tell them for at least like 4 to 6 months. Like, you've got to hit it really, really hard. Yes, that means like sometimes you may have to have those awkward conversations, like, you know, at family get-togethers or birthday parties or whatever it may be. Yes, you may have to skip that eating out at the fast food restaurant with, you know, with your friends for a few months. You know, but it's to really help your kids get healthy and well, right? So, you know, same thing as an adult. Like, we know that studies actually show that a little bit of bad fat can lead to 132 days of cell dysfunction. 132 days. Think about that for just a second. Like, when I first found out and I first read that study, I had to really think about that. Like, have I really, any time in my life, like leading up to I guess probably 5 years ago when I heard that study, was there any point in my life that I went, I guess that, what is that, like, you know, over 4 months, almost 5 months? Like, have I ever went that long with literally zero, like exposed to zero bad fats, like exposed to zero trans fats or zero rancid and oxidized fats? And I had to really think about that. And I'm like, man, maybe when I first started changing my health, you know, 13, 14 years ago, I think I went, you know, probably 6 to 12 months without it. But then I started thinking, I'm like, man, no, I mean, I would have those occasions where I would go with like family and, you know, because we ate so well all the time, I would, you know, like blow it for an entire day, and have like, you know, whatever, you know, fried po' boy in New Orleans that we wanted, or like, you know, that pizza here or whatever. And so it really kind of like brought me home and humbled me for a second. I'm like, man, 132 days of cell dysfunction. So what does that mean? That means when you change your diet for a month, that's great, and you may see improvements in things, but you have to remember, you're in it for the long haul, right? You're trying to change your body at a cellular level, which means you may have to go, you know, you have to be very, very serious about this for a good amount of time. So that's why when people are like, Dr. Nathan, you know, I tried keto, and it just, you know, I got some results, but it didn't do what I wanted it to do. My first question is always, how long did you go, right? And usually the answer is like, I tried it for 30 days. I tried it for 2 months. You know, in reality, if you've got metabolic issues, you may need to do it for anywhere from 3 to 6 months, depending on how, you know, insulin resistant you are. It's the same way with changing your fat ratios inside of the body. It takes time. You're literally having to dilute your cell membranes with good fat just to push out the bad fat. All right, it's not like burning off sugar. Okay, so I think I've you know, established the importance of getting down to one of the root causes of eczema and skin issues, and really many health condition, which is a cell membrane imbalance. Okay, so to be specific for you guys to understand how to actually make some of these changes, it means cutting out the canola oil. And yes, some of you guys that are listening on the radio show and on Facebook Live that eat at, you know, Whole Foods still, which, by the way, you know, do me a favor, stop giving your money to a company that is so scared of a pandemic and a virus that like, you know, they talk about like eating organic foods and like, that we tout health, but then, you know, we want people to triple mask, and we're so scared of a germ that all of our employees walk around using hand sanitizer all the stinking time. You know, stop giving your money to a company like that. They're not about health. They're about taking your money. You know, that when Amazon bought them, guys, I don't know if you know this, they made you think that they were decreasing their prices. They actually increased their prices by 8%, but they slapped Amazon Prime type discounts and things like that. Stop giving your money to jokers like that. You know, give it to the local farmers, give it to the local farmers markets. You know, order things from thrivemarket.com. Order things from, places like Butcher Box or like White Oak Pastures, U.S. Wellness Meats. So these are all great places to get things from. Or like I said, support your local farmer. Even like for us here locally, like even our Publix has like actually a really great vegetable, fruit selection, organic selection, even, better than maybe our Whole Foods downtown here in Chattanooga. So don't give any money to those jokers anymore. But sidebar, sorry, let me get back to it. So, changing out canola oil, cottonseed oil, safflower oil, soybean oil, corn oil. Another one that I see touted as a health food is sunflower oil. Unless it says high oleic sunflower oil, I would not use that. So if it says high oleic sunflower oil, you can probably get away with that and be fine. But if it just says sunflower oil, I wouldn't use it at all, right? So now, unless it's like cold press, right? If it's cold pressed sunflower oil that's like, in a dark bottle and it's for refrigerated, like Andrea's seed oils, that can be amazing. Or if it's in a supplement that it's cold pressed, that can actually be really good for you as well. So that one's kind of on the fence there. But change it out. Lots of grass-fed butter, lots of grass-fed ghee, things like organic extra virgin olive oil, things like you can use cold pressed flaxseed oil. You can use things like chia seeds, hemp seeds. You can get, things like hemp seed oil. These are all amazing, good, healthy fats that can absolutely transform your cell membrane. From a supplement standpoint, I like to use Pure Form Omega. That's one of my favorites. So again, if you go to doctorswarren.com, you go under the Dr. Warren's favorites. If you go there, you can actually see. So shop, and you can see favorites. Pure Form Omega, I have that listed there because I absolutely love it. It's all coming from vegetable, plant-based sources. So it's all organic. It's all raw. It's all cold pressed. And here's where the importance is. The supplement actually has a nitrogen bubble in it that keeps all of the oils from going rancid or oxidizing at all. And so when I'm working with patients to rebuild their cell membrane health, I use something like Pure Form Omega, or I use Andrea's seed oils, which is also on that same page as well. Like for kids, I'll usually use Andrea's seed oils because they usually can't take capsules. But for adults, I use Pure Form Omega. And you use Pure Form Omega dosing it, just by the way, you're going to do like 1 capsule per 30 to 40 pounds of body weight. And that's a really great way to dose it and to start working on your cell membrane health. So I've got to go on another quick break, guys. Before I do, again, if you're listening and you want our help, and you're in the Chattanooga area, you can come in and see us in our clinic. We'd love to be able to see you there. We work with people that have no symptoms and no pain. They're just trying to optimize their health. And then we work with people that have, chronic issues as well, whether that's hormone imbalance, gut dysfunction, maybe it's neck pain, back pain, headaches, maybe it's numbness and tingling, restless leg syndrome, fibromyalgia, any of those things. We work with getting down to the root cause in our office, supporting the body, not treating, supporting the body and seeing amazing results with that. So that number is 423-362-5360. Our girls are standing by. Again, that's 423-362-5360. And they can set you up with an appointment there as well. So again, guys, this is Wellness Radio with Dr. Nathan Warren. I'll see you right after the break. All right, guys, so diving back into it here. So again, hopefully I hit the cell membrane thing hard. Change out your bad fats for good fats. Listen, I will probably talk about that on every Facebook Live and every radio show that I do for the rest of my life. Every clubhouse that we do, every talk that we do. Why? Because it is that stinking important. Like, I drive this home in my men's groups that I coach. I drive this point home like literally on a weekly basis because I really think it takes so much time for it to truly sink in. Where I want you to literally think of these bad oils and these bad fats as heavy metals. Like, that's how I want you to think about them in your head, because they're not fit for human consumption and they will lead to things like, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, those type of things later on. Now, Another one I wanted to dive into a little bit that I see a lot is the microbial overgrowth. I talked about how that can be a trigger. That can be a major one, both a bacterial overgrowth on the skin or in the gut. All right. So there's two different sides of that coin. So sometimes, I shouldn't say sometimes, a lot of times there is a microbiome issue on the skin, right? So I usually have to address that as well when I'm working with somebody that is dealing with eczema. Now you'll hear, in the alternative world, and you'll hear in like the Dr. Google world and things like that. Like, you'll hear about people talk about like bleach baths and things like that to dry it out and do stuff like that. I have never been a fan of that, like, at all. And the main reason for that is because, like, you have bacteria and you have microorganisms on the skin for a reason. Now, you may have imbalance, and so we need to fix that imbalance, but we don't need to kill everything that's on the skin. And actually, I believe that leads to, just kind of this cycle effect where it's just going to keep coming back and usually get worse. So, we have to balance that back out. That's really, really important. So, those can be things like staph, right? So I see like staph infection, MRSA. Sometimes I've even found that doctors have misdiagnosed, patients with things like eczema, and actually seeing things like it may be more antibiotic resistant staph infection, like a MRSA. And so we have to address that as well. And so I like to use things that help to balance that out. Sometimes it's even things like yeast and candida, overgrowth that's kind of leading to that. So I like to address balance, microbial balance on the skin. So there's certain things out there that actually work with the microbiome and with nature and with your skin. So, I've never seen super good results with eczema and utilizing things like coconut oil. That usually seems to kind of dry it out. So maybe if you have skin rashes or issues and you've been using coconut oil, maybe change that out a little bit. If it's working for you, great, keep using it. But I usually find that coconut oil only seems to work well if it's like a fungal issue on the skin. That seems to work decently well. Otherwise, I like using things like extra virgin olive oil. I like using things like raw manuka honey. That seems kind of weird. But there's like something called eczema honey that you can use. That's a great company for skin issues that works well. All right, guys, welcome back to Wellness Radio. I am your health expert, Dr. Nathan Warren. We're talking everything about skin and eczema today. I've talked about some of the main triggers on Facebook Live here. I was actually going over microbial imbalance on the skin. So using certain things on the skin that help to rebuild the microbiome. And so, like, just to give you guys some specific examples, I like to use one by Systemic Formulas. And that's actually on, if you go to doctorswarren.com shop, it's on our Revelation Health shop area, but it's Systemic Formulas, and they have something called they have a skin colonizer. So it's actually utilizing really good healthy fat that's in there for the skin to really help with that, and then also some things like some actual skin prebiotics and some specific types of bacteria to put on what was that? Join the newsletter. Oh yeah, you can. Dr. Rebecca reminded me, if you go on our newsletter, like if you sign up for our newsletter, that's something that we can send out this next week, information on a recap of today's show. So thank you for that reminder, Dr. Rebecca. So if you go on doctorswarren.com, sign up for our free newsletter, and again, we send out a recap of this throughout the week, and we send out some of the examples of products that we talk about on the show as well. But the skin colonizer is great. It actually soaks in really, really well. So if you have, a sensitive area with the eczema, you can actually utilize that on there, and you're going to see it actually kind of absorb really, really quickly. So there's no like greasy feeling to it. But that's a great way to start actually rebalancing the microbial imbalance there on the skin. Some other things that you can do is make sure that you're switching out your soaps, like the soap you're using, again, in the shower or the bath, in the shampoos that you're using. So use something that's going to be non-toxic. There's a company called Mother Dirt. Mother Dirt, like, is really about, like, so they make, like, skin products, they make shampoos, they make things like that are actually really great at, again, rebalancing the microbial environment on the skin. So Mother Dirt, that's something that you can look for and look up and utilize well, and switch up your soaps. Another great soap is like Native. We like to use that one as well. And sometimes, like, with my really sensitive patients, I'll have them use like the fragrance-free one, like kind of the hypoallergenic one, by Native, and that one seems to work well, too. Now, let's get into some of the root causes, all right? So some of the root causes are, again, hyper, like, gut permeability, or, I hate the word leaky gut. I hate that term. So just think of it as damage to the mucosal membrane, or zonulin has been triggered and opened up the tight junctions in the gut. That could be a root cause, right? So how do we get that? How do we get, things like a gut permeability issue from things like glyphosate? So if you are not paying attention to the food that you're consuming or that your kids are consuming, and even if you are, unfortunately, we find that glyphosate can be high. Like, I just tested about a 35-year-old male 2 weeks ago. I did a glyphosate test. We sent it off and got the results back. And this is a guy that eats, he's been eating all organic for the past 3.5 years. This is a guy that does not eat out. This is a guy that really pays attention, and his glyphosate level was high, right? So we're exposed to it in our environment. Glyphosate, by the way, is the most water-soluble toxin on our planet. The most water-soluble, which means what? When your next door neighbors spray that crap, again, on their lawn, guess what? That gets into our environment. So it doesn't just affect you. So those of you out there, even if you're longtime listeners, my goal is not to offend you. My goal is to educate you. You do not need your golf course to, you do not need your yard to look like a golf course, okay? It just doesn't need to. Spend your time doing other things. There's so many other things in life that you can do. I mean, heck, the amount of time some of you spend on your lawn, you could probably write an amazing book that could change lives forever, all right? So I'm going to challenge you with that. It's not to offend you. It's not to shame you. But again, you got to think about these things. If you are spraying this crap on your lawn, it is affecting all of us because it is the most water-soluble toxin on the planet. And so our glyphosate exposure is a big deal. Now, don't worry, don't freak out, don't think you have to live in a bubble. A very easy solution to really taking care of that is by utilizing a supplement called Ion Biome, okay? Ion Biome. This is one I use with most of my patients, especially at the beginning, and I do it kind of in low doses and work our way up. Ion Biome is basically, it's a product, and it's basically utilizing specific types of ancient minerals that are kind of taken from the earth, that really do a great job and clinically have been shown to close up the tight junctions of the gut. And they've even done some clinical studies looking at the way that people that are exposed to glyphosate, so let's say via food, that it's about in the same amounts in their urine, which means it was not absorbed into the body at very high rates. So it's a really great way to kind of protect your gut, and a great way to protect from glyphosate exposure is utilizing something like Ion Biome. It's a liquid. With our kids, we call it magic dirt water. So like they always, like once before we eat, we all kind of take like a little shot of it. And again, it's a gut protector, and it also starts to close up the gap junctions. So when I do like a food sensitivity test with my patients, and a lot of times I will use a food sensitivity test, like an IgG food sensitivity test, especially with the kids and the parents that I'm coaching there. I like to see that because I can cut out some of those main trigger foods for, right off the bat to calm down symptoms, with the mindset that, again, it's not the food that is bad, it's the gut environment that is bad, so I got to heal the gut. So I will use Ion Biome as a really good way to start healing the gut and closing up those tight junctions and preventing the glyphosate exposure. That's a really great way to do it. Some other ways that you get gut permeability issues, antibiotics. Man, holy moly, even in the health realm, people are thrown on antibiotics like crazy, or they're still eating foods and animals that have been, distributed or given things like antibiotics. So those are some of the things that we see can really directly affect, the gut permeability issues. Now, some other things that again, gut permeability issues, if you're constantly consuming gluten and wheat, even if you're somebody that's like, no, I eat wheat and I'm totally fine. No, we've actually seen studies that show that wheat, even organic wheat, even stone ground wheat, I don't care if you got einkorn wheat from, Switzerland, and you are stone grinding it in your backyard, and you're making the most sourdough bread in the world. Doesn't mean you can't have that on occasion. But again, if it contains wheat, and by the way, a big misconception I see out there is that sourdough, it ferments all the gluten out of things. That's not true. It may decrease the amount and decrease some of the side effects of it. And again, you can see some really good health benefits from sourdough on occasion. But again, it's still going to trigger what's called zonulin, which is going to open up those tight junctions in the gut. So that's why I always recommend, really going towards an actually good gluten-free diet, more like a paleo diet. I'm a big fan of that, and kind of going grain-free overall, so that you limit that gut permeability issues. Things like L-glutamine, things like aloe, those are really great things to really help heal the gut. Marshmallow root is a great thing that seems to help the gut quite a bit, and kind of closing up those gap junctions. Colostrum can be a big one, from a goat's milk source like Mount Capra. Those can all be really good. I like to use Mega Mucosa by Microbiome Labs. That's a really great one as well. So those are some good options for closing up gut permeability. So I got to take my last break of this first hour. And again, as I go on break, I will make sure to dive a little bit deeper on Facebook Live. So if you are listening on the radio and you have the ability to listen on Facebook Live, follow us at Doctors Warren on Facebook, and like and follow that page so that you can get all that information. So again, guys, this is Wellness Radio. If you want an appointment in our office, 423-362-5360. Again, that's 423-362-5360. The girls can actually set you up with an appointment. Come in and see us in the office, and let's start getting down to the root cause of your health issues. I'm Dr. Nathan Warren, and this is Wellness Radio, and I'll see you right back after the break. All right, guys. So, getting back into it again, let's see. Rebecca asked, can charcoal clean too? So, activated charcoal is actually a really, really great thing. I love to use activated charcoal. It's usually a part of protocols that I use with my patients then when I'm working on healing the gut and when I'm working on detoxification. So pretty much through the whole process, when you're working with me, I have you on some type of binder in the gut. Activated charcoal has been shown and utilized, at this point for centuries. It is one of the most powerful things because it has a charge to it. So it's really good at attracting, toxins within the gut and in the body. So I love utilizing charcoal. Now, I like to use things like, that also contain more than just activated charcoal. So I like using GI Detox Plus, which again, this is on our shop, and this will be on a newsletter that we send out this next week. But it contains some other components to it, like it contains some zeolite in it, which is really great at binding to heavy metals. It contains some aloe, which is really soothing to the gut, some marshmallow root, which is soothing to the gut. So it's got more components to it, some humeric and fulvic acid in it, which is really great at binding too. But I love that. So Rebecca, thanks for bringing that up. I love to use that. So again, so far, if you're kind of on here and you're looking at kind of putting something together for, like a gut protocol for yourself or for your kid, so far we've talked about ion biome for kind of starting to close up the gap junctions, preventing and protecting the gut from like glyphosate and those type of things. So kind of get started on that. We've talked about some good gut closers. So picking like one or two of those, whether it's L-glutamine, maybe it's aloe, and kind of starting in there. And then we talked about a binder, right? We talked about like actually grabbing on. And actually a binder is even important if you guys are dealing with whether it's parasites or you're dealing with, E. coli overgrowth, C. diff overgrowth, H. pylori, SIBO, all of those things. Because as you're killing things off, you also have to bind that up as well. Otherwise, you're going to see symptoms show up. All right. So Rebecca, again, thank you for bringing that up. You can even use charcoal. There's certain products you can use like actually on the skin as well. And it can really do some good, as well too. So keep that in mind. I think that's a really great thing to recognize. And then I want to go ahead and start talking about this because I don't want to run out of time without talking about it. Histamine reaction. This is big. A lot of times with my patients, we may run like an actual DNA like genetic test to kind of see if they have certain SNPs. But if you have a DAO SNP, which most of the time I'll see that like alongside like maybe a COMT or an MTHFR gene mutation as well. But if there's a DAO gene mutation, that means you're not producing at adequate amounts a DAO enzyme, which helps to kind of turn off or mitigate the histamine process. And so a histamine reaction can really be a root cause as well to the eczema issues that you or your child may be dealing with. And so we have to address that. You have to address histamine reaction as well in order to see some good results. And that's why I see some people that have like, some allergic reactions, to maybe it's pollen or those type of things. And they give their child like Benadryl and they're like, but it helps so much. And we even see their skin issues start to go down. Or they're given like, the steroid cream and they see that go down. A lot of times that's because it's a histamine reaction. And so, taking steroids or putting steroids on the skin and doing those type of things, that's not a long-term solution, right? That's going to end up over time really hurting you. So we're about to go live again in just a second. All right, guys, welcome back to Wellness Radio. I am your health expert, Dr. Nathan Warren, and I've only got a few minutes here left on this first hour. So I really want to kind of dive into it. I talked about, possibly having a genetic SNP, a DAO issue that's creating a histamine reaction. So you have to work to calm that down. Now, that's a little bit more complicated. And again, that's why I like to work specifically with these individuals in my office, because it can actually be different support for different people. Some other things to kind of keep in mind as root causes. Things like, again, chronic infection. So if you have an underlying viral issue that continues to show up over and over again underneath, like Epstein-Barr virus, cytomegalovirus, and some of those, even certain paraviruses, these can actually be, triggers. Environmental toxins can be a big one as well. So like heavy metal toxicity, things like plastics, BP. If you can hear my daughter in the background, she's having a lot of fun out there. So again, hopefully that's not distracting. She's so cute, by the way, so it's not distracting to me. It's cute. Environmental toxins, heavy metals, things like environmental allergens. So mold, that can be a big one as well. Chronic stress, poor sleep. So you've got to get those nailed down as well. So if your child's not sleeping, they're not going to be healing from their eczema or skin issue. It's just not going to happen, because again, that's a time that the body heals. And also, don't forget this, if they're not sleeping well, again, they may not be getting the adequate amount of clearance with the liver, and their liver may not be really doing, their job, and their glutathione levels may not be up where they need to be, because between about 1 to 2 a.m. in the morning to about 4 or 5 in the morning, your liver really does a lot of work. So if they're not sleeping well, that can be a big issue. Another one, vitamin D deficiency. Yes, I have 3 patients that I can think of off the top of my head that I've worked with over the last 2 years that had eczema issues that literally the main root cause was vitamin D deficiency. And when we did their blood work and we looked at their vitamin D levels, for most of them, they were under 20, which is highly deficient. It's even deficient in the medical realm, let alone the functional realm. And so by really driving that up, we got to see it modulate the immune system, and we got to see their eczema problems go away. How amazing is that with something as simple as a vitamin D deficiency? So you got to make sure that you're figuring out what for you or what for your child could be a root cause, and then address that, right? And then we want to address that. So again, guys, if you want our help in our office, maybe you live somewhere else, guys. I do virtual coaching as well. So if you go to doctorswarren.com, you can read more about that. On doctorswarren.com, you can find all the things we talked about as far as products go. Sign up for the free newsletter because we send out a recap each week. And you can also read more about virtual appointments on there. Or you can give our girls a call. That number is 423-362-5360. This has been Wellness Radio. Stay tuned for the second hour. I'll see you next time. All right, guys. So hopefully that gave you guys some good examples of what are root cause, right, to eczema. We talked about what are triggers, because those are 2 different things, right? So you've got to get down to the root cause. And, you know, again, one I kind of skipped over, like that root cause with like mold issues and that type of thing. You know, there's certain root causes that are much harder than others, right? Like mold, you know, that's a tough one because you may have to remediate the house, or you may have to move, or you may have to do some things like that. You know, at the least amount, you know, utilize a good air filter. And I usually do that anyway with my eczema patients. You know, again, if it's a child, I have the parents get a really good air filter, regardless of if they have mold issues or not, just to make sure that we clear out the air and that that's not an issue. And those, you know, like Air Doctor's a really great one that you can utilize. It's super easy. They even have like the little mini ones that you can use like in your kids' room. That's not like overly expensive as well. But anyway, like you've got to figure out the root cause, right? Start addressing that. And then you have to, again, at the beginning, you may have to calm down some of those triggers, right? So that you kind of stop seeing the symptoms show up and really stop seeing those major flare-ups and some of that pain and discomfort. So, you know, take care of the triggers, get down to the root cause, and then remodulate the immune system. What does that mean? This is important. Parents, if your child, you know, is fighting off a virus or an infection and they get a fever, let them have a fever, okay? A fever is not a dangerous thing. And again, I know that there's some individuals that are even watching me right now that don't agree with me, and they're like, oh no, Dr. Nathan, fevers can be scary. BS. Fevers are amazing for the body. That is a health defense. That is literally a part of the innate immune system. Stopping a fever actually damages the way your Th1, your cell-mediated part of the immune system, works. Let your children get through their, you know, whatever they're fighting off. Guys, I'm telling you, you can help them, right? Like love on them. You can support their bodies, give them plenty of vitamin A and vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, those type of things, selenium, you know, elderberry. You can do those amazing things to support the body. But again, let their bodies take care of itself. Stop stopping the fever. You got to stop doing that, guys, because that damages the immune system over time. And what it does is it throws the immune system into Th2, or more of the humoral part of the immune system, and that's called autoimmune, all right? And so you have to get the body out of that. You have to get it stuck out, you know, get it retrained and remodulated. That's why I say fevers are a great thing. If you can, infrared saunas. That's another great thing that you can utilize to heat up the body and kind of start working it down that way. And then on occasion, if it's such a bad case, and it's something that, like, man, it's like nothing seems to touch it, and it's going to take a long time, many years. For those that have severe autoimmune, you may be a candidate for something like low-dose naltrexone, like LDN. And again, it needs to be done with a functional practitioner that knows really, really well how to utilize that. And for about 40% of the population, it's just not going to work. For the other ones, it can be life-changing. It can work really, really well. You know, there's other strategies to remodulate the immune system too, like mistletoe extract and those type of things. So hopefully overall, I gave you guys some good information here. If you enjoyed it, if you like the information on eczema, like I said, please share our videos. Again, you never know how far reaching that can be. It can really change somebody's life forever, just hearing about how, you know, to start taking care of their health issues. And if you haven't yet, like and follow our page and get on our website, doctorswarren.com. We made that for you. It's got blog posts, past radio shows on just about every topic you can imagine. Our shop is there that goes over all the things that I went over today. Our newsletter is really the only way that we can give out uncensored information anymore. So make sure that you sign up for that, which is a free newsletter as well. But thank you for joining me. And again, guys, I hope you have a wonderful and amazing day. And remember, your health is your decision, and it's based on the choices that you make every single day. So make the right choices, right? Enjoy life, love your family, love God, and life is beautiful. I'll see you guys later.